I never understood true betrayal until the day my father willed his priceless Steinway grand piano to my sister and left me the cleaning supplies he used to polish it. The revelation came during the reading of his will, 3 weeks after his funeral. In his attorney's office with its heavy mahogany desk and walls lined with legal texts that seemed to mock my shock. To my daughter Eliza, I leave my Steinway Model D concert grand piano, appraised at $180,000, along with all accompanying sheet music and performance recordings. Mr. Hargrove read from behind wire-rimmed glasses. The piano represents my life's passion and greatest achievement. I know she will honor its legacy. My sister Claire nodded solemnly, dabbing at tears with an embroidered handkerchief. She wore our father's favorite color, navy blue, in a tailored dress that whispered old money and tradition. Her diamond engagement ring caught the light as she reached for a glass of water. The attorney cleared his throat and continued, "To my daughter Rebecca, I leave my piano maintenance kit, including polishing cloths, specialized cleaning solutions, and the leather-bound maintenance journal dating back to the instrument's acquisition in 1978. For a moment, I thought it was a mistake, or perhaps a prelude to something more substantial. I waited, fingers curled around the armrests of my chair, but Mr. Hargrove simply turned the page and moved on to bequests for distant cousins and charitable donations. The maintenance kit, a box of rags and polish worth perhaps $50. That was my inheritance after 32 years of being his daughter. After 2 decades of weekly piano lessons I never wanted but he insisted upon. After arranging my life around his recitals and competitions. There must be some mistake, I said, my voice thin in the quiet room. The piano was always meant to be shared between us. Mr. Hargrove peered at me over his glasses. I'm afraid there's no mistake. Miss Harmon, your father was quite specific about these arrangements. Claire wouldn't meet my eyes. She studied her manicured nails, perfectly shaped and glossy like the piano's finish that I had helped maintain every Sunday morning of my childhood. But I was the one who sat with him for hours while he practiced, I said, heat rising in my cheeks. I was the one who turned pages during his performances, who canceled my college graduation trip to care for him after his first stroke, who moved back home when his health declined. Claire finally looked up. Becca, he wanted me to have it. I was his protégé. You never even liked playing. She was right about that last part. I had hated those lessons, hated the rigid perfection he demanded, the way my fingers would cramp from repetitive scales, but I had loved him, despite his coldness, despite the way he measured affection in perfect arpeggios and flawless recitals. Then why leave me the cleaning supplies? I asked, voice cracking. Why not just exclude me entirely rather than make this statement? Mr. Hargrove cleared his throat again. There is a letter for you as well. Miss Harmon, your father requested it be given to you privately after the formal reading. I took the envelope. Its weight insignificant in my trembling hands. The room felt suddenly claustrophobic. Claire's sympathetic gaze unbearable. Without a word, I gathered my coat and purse and walked out into the crisp autumn air. Letter unopened. 3 hours later, I sat in my apartment surrounded by cardboard boxes. I'd been in the process of moving to a larger place, anticipating that I might inherit some of Dad's furniture or perhaps even the piano. The irony wasn't lost on me as I stared at the letter on my coffee table. My husband David found me there, still in my funeral clothes, the envelope untouched. You're home early, I said numbly. David set down his briefcase and sat beside me, his arm warm around my shoulders. Meeting finished sooner than expected. How did it go? I gestured to the letter. He left Claire the piano, worth nearly $200,000, and he left me the cleaning kit. David's arm tightened around me. That doesn't make any sense. You were always there for him. Apparently that wasn't what mattered. I picked up the envelope, turning it over in my hands. He left me this letter too. Some explanation, I guess. Do you want me to leave you alone to read it? I shook my head. Stay, please. With unsteady fingers, I broke the seal and unfolded a single sheet of stationery. My father's elegant, slanted handwriting filled the page, the same hand that had marked up my sheet music with critical notations for 20 years. Rebecca, if you're reading this, you've learned about the piano. You're angry, hurt, perhaps even humiliated. You have every right to be. The piano was never going to be yours, not because you weren't worthy, but because it would have been a burden disguised as a gift. You never loved music the way Claire and I did. You performed adequately but without passion. What you did love was taking care. You organized my life, maintained my home, polished not just the piano but everything around you until it gleamed. You were the one who remembered birthdays, who knew when the piano needed tuning, who kept the maintenance journal more faithfully than I ever did. The cleaning kit is not an insult, though I imagine it feels that way. It represents the only genuine connection we ever had. While Claire and I shared music, you and I shared Sunday mornings with lemon polish and soft cloths, working in comfortable silence on the one thing we both treasured. I've made arrangements with Mr. Hargrove. The maintenance kit contains more than cleaning supplies. The false bottom of the wooden case holds the key to a safe deposit box. Inside you'll find what I couldn't give you in life: freedom from obligation. Use it wisely. Your father. I stared at the letter, reading it twice more before looking at David. What does it mean? He asked gently. I don't know. I stood up, suddenly restless. The piano isn't being delivered until tomorrow. The cleaning kit is already at Claire's house with everything else. David checked his watch. It's only 6 o'clock. We could go there now. She's hosting a memorial dinner for Dad's colleagues tonight. She wouldn't want us interrupting. David raised an eyebrow. The dinner she didn't invite you to? Get your coat. 40 minutes later, we stood on Claire's doorstep. Her large Georgian home was lit up. Cars lining the circular driveway. A catering van was parked near the side entrance. Staff in black uniforms carrying trays inside. Claire answered the door herself, surprise flashing across her face before her society smile reappeared. Rebecca, David, this is unexpected. I need the cleaning kit, I said without preamble. Dad's letter said there's something important inside. Claire hesitated, glancing over her shoulder at the guests mingling in her foyer. Classical music, one of Dad's recordings, played softly in the background. Now isn't really a good time. Could you come back tomorrow when the piano arrives? We could do it together. No, I said firmly. I'd like it now, please. Something in my tone must have convinced her. She nodded stiffly and gestured for us to follow her upstairs to her study. Away from the party, the room was immaculate, decorated in blues and creams, with framed photographs of Claire with our father at various recitals and competitions. I didn't appear in any of them. She opened a closet and brought out a polished wooden box I knew intimately. I had helped Dad select it years ago, choosing the cherry wood with brass hinges, watching as the craftsman engraved my father's initials on the lid. Here, she said, setting it on her desk. I don't understand why he'd hide anything in there, but feel free to look. My hands remembered the contours of the box, the slight resistance of the latch, the way the lid needed a gentle push at the back corner to open smoothly. Inside, arranged in precise compartments, were the familiar tools of piano maintenance: specialized cloths, brushes, polishes, the leather journal with its meticulous entries. I removed each item carefully, setting them aside while Claire watched impatiently from the doorway. When the box was empty, I ran my fingers along the velvet-lined bottom, searching for irregularities. See? Nothing, Claire said. Now if you don't mind, my guests. Wait. My fingers found a slight indentation at one corner. I pressed it and heard a click as a false bottom released. Beneath it lay a small brass key and an envelope. Claire stepped closer, her composure slipping. What is that? I opened the envelope first. Inside was a bank statement from an offshore account in my name, established 20 years earlier with monthly deposits. The balance showed just over $2 million. Behind it was a deed to a property in Vermont, a lakeside cottage I remembered from a family vacation when I was 12. It had been my favorite place. The only 2 weeks when Dad had put the piano aside and simply been present with us. The final document was a handwritten note. Rebecca. Claire received the piano because she needed it. Her identity, her sense of worth, is tied to my approval and the musical legacy I represented. You needed something different: freedom from expectations, space to discover who you are beyond the role of caretaker. The cottage is yours, as is the account. I've been building it for you since the day you told me, at 12 years old, that you wished we could stay at the lake forever. I was a poor father in many ways, too consumed by my own ambitions to see yours clearly, but I did see how you came alive in that place, away from the pressure of performance and perfection. Consider this my attempt at amends. All my love. Dad. I sat heavily in Claire's desk chair, papers trembling in my hands. David read over my shoulder, his hand steady on my back. Claire stood frozen in the doorway. What is it? She finally asked. I looked up at my sister, my father's true musical heir, the daughter whose talents he had recognized and nurtured. For the first time, I saw beyond her perfect appearance to the anxiety beneath, the constant striving to maintain his approval even after death. He left me freedom, I said quietly, and he left you the burden of his legacy. 2 days later, after a tense conversation with Claire and a long discussion with David, I sat in a rental car outside the Vermont cottage that was now mine. Snow dusted the pines surrounding the property, the lake partially frozen in the February chill. I hadn't been back here in 20 years. But the place looked remarkably unchanged, a sturdy stone and timber retreat nestled among tall trees. I used the brass key to unlock the front door, holding my breath as I stepped inside. The air was cold but not stale. Someone had been maintaining the place. A stone fireplace dominated the main room, surrounded by comfortable furniture draped in protective covers. Large windows overlooked the lake, capturing the winter landscape in natural frames. In the corner, impossibly, stood a piano, not a grand concert Steinway like my father's, but a simple upright with warm wood tones. On top sat a small card with my name written in my father's hand. I approached it cautiously, as if it might disappear. The card contained just one line: "Play what brings you joy, not what brings you acclaim." I lifted the cover, revealing keys that were neither pristine nor perfect. This was a piano that had been loved, played, enjoyed without the pressure of performance. I pressed a key experimentally, the sound resonating in the quiet room. For the first time in years, I felt drawn to the instrument rather than obligated to it. I sat on the bench and placed my hands in position, not for the classical pieces my father had insisted upon, but for a simple song I had loved as a child. My fingers were rusty, the melody imperfect, but as I played in that quiet cottage that was now mine, I felt something long dormant awakening, not my father's passion for technical perfection, but my own appreciation for the simple joy of creation. David found me there an hour later, still playing, tears streaming down my face. He set down our bags and sat beside me on the bench, not speaking, simply present as I rediscovered a part of myself long buried under obligation and expectation. That night, as we sat by the fireplace with mugs of hot chocolate, I opened my father's maintenance journal. Beyond the meticulous records of tunings and polish applications were margin notes I'd never noticed before, small observations about my childhood, moments he'd treasured but never spoken aloud. Rebecca helped polish today. She has her mother's careful hands and thoughtful focus. Rebecca fell asleep during practice again, curled on the window seat, played softer so she could rest. Rebecca's graduation today. Immensely proud though I couldn't say it properly, must try harder to show her. The final entry, dated just weeks before his death, read, arrangements completed for R's inheritance. Hope she understands someday that the piano was my voice, but never meant to be hers. She deserves to find her own music. 6 months later, Claire called me from New York. Our conversations had been strained since the will reading, limited to necessary legal discussions as we finalized our father's estate. The piano needs maintenance, she said without greeting. I've tried other services, but they don't do it right. I smiled into the phone, looking out over the summer green lawn that sloped down to the lake. I'm pretty busy here. The music program at the local school is just getting started. I had begun teaching basic piano to children who had never had the opportunity for lessons, focusing on enjoyment rather than perfection. The cottage had become a gathering place for community music events, informal and joyful in a way my father's regimented performances never were. Please, Claire said, her voice softer. I don't know how to maintain it properly. Dad always said you were the only one who understood the piano's needs. I heard what she wasn't saying, that she missed me, that maintaining our father's legacy alone was harder than she'd anticipated, that perhaps she needed her sister back in her life. I could come for a weekend, I offered, bring the cleaning kit, and maybe, she hesitated, you could play something? The house is too quiet with just me. I thought of our father's note, play what brings you joy. I'd like that, I said, but I choose the music this time. When I returned to New York the following weekend, I brought the maintenance kit, now containing not just my father's supplies but my own additions. Claire and I spent Sunday morning polishing the Steinway together, sharing memories and beginning to rebuild what had been broken. Later, I played for her, not the classical pieces our father would have chosen, but music that spoke of lakeside mornings and quiet joy, of freedom found in unexpected places, of a promise hidden between piano keys that had finally been fulfilled.